Should you play a mage in TBC? Short answer, yes.
Today we're going to be answering one very simple question: should you play a mage in the Burning Crusade? This video will cover 4 major topics. First of all the major changes from Classic WoW, then talent changes, PvE and PvP performance, and lastly we'll look at some of the tier sets. Just before we jump in, guys, if you like the content, please be sure to just subscribe and like the video, because that really does help out. Dragon's Breath, one of the more fun abilities that deals an AoE fire damage in a cone.
Dragon's Breath is... this spell is amazing. So imagine it basically that you are doing Kerosene and you got a warlock who is doing, with Seed of Corruption, just insane AoE DPS. And what's gonna happen, obviously, if your warrior doesn't have a Thunder Fury, your warlock is gonna be pulling. He's gonna be basically, yeah, pulling from your tank. So what you can be doing as a fire mage is that you can be using Dragon's Breath to kind of like distract, you see. So for 3 seconds you're gonna be disorienting the enemies. So you see that your warlock is having issues, you're gonna be using your Dragon's Breath and you're gonna disorient all the mobs that are going after your warlock, and obviously it's giving a little bit more time for your tank to pick up the mobs, and you can continue with your regular rotation. But very powerful and very funny spell.
In front of the mage, while also disorientating the victims for 3 seconds. This will mostly be used in PvE AoE situations in rotation with Blast Wave and Arcane Blast for insanely high burst AoE damage, although you will only be able to effectively use this ability when grouped up with a Protection Paladin, since if you're grouped up with a different tank, you'll probably pull threat off him. It's also very useful in PvP as an AoE CC effect, which are very rare in the game. Next we have Molten Armor, which is a new mage armor that increases your crit chance with spells by 3%, and also reduces the chance for you to be crit by 5%, and also deals 75 damage to attackers. You're mainly going to use this armor for the crit chance. The other effects are less useful in a raiding environment, and since the Molten Armor effect actually reflects a little bit of fire damage, there are a number of situations where you actually have to remove the armor since it can get you killed. There's also a talent that makes Molten Armor affect ranged and attack spells, which is pretty cool. But when you're gearing up, you're going to have some serious mana issues, so a lot of the time you will probably end up just going with Mage Armor. Thirdly, we have Ice Lance, which is an instant cast ability that deals moderate frost damage to the enemy. This is a very useful method of dealing damage.
Finally Ice Lance, and Ice Lance is gonna be so effective in PvP. This is just one of the best and funniest spells to be using.
Damage when you're on the move, and also it will benefit from a Frost Mage's Shatter effect. We also have the Summon Water Elemental, which acts more like a DPS cooldown in TBC rather than a permanent pet. It will deal damage for 45 seconds. It can also use its AoE freeze effect, much like the Ice Nova effect, except you can use it at ranged, much like your Blizzard ability, which is very, very useful. And the second cooldown for Frostspec is Icy Veins, which speeds up your spellcasting by 20% and prevents interruptions caused by damage for 20 seconds. This can also be doubled up with Cold Snap talent for a total of 40 seconds. Now let's move on to some cool arcane spells. Firstly we have Arcane Blast, which is a main damaging ability that allows the mage to spec deep into arcane and make it a viable DPS spec.
Every mage spec is just viable. Arcane, or Frost, Arcane, Fire or Frost, all of them are viable, but obviously Fire is the best one.
It deals decent damage, and every time you cast the spell, the cast time is reduced, but the mana it cost is increased. So it's a very mana hungry ability that has to be controlled and tamed very skillfully, and because it obviously drains a lot of mana, arcane mages actually do a little bit of frost bolts from time to time to kind of fill in their rotation. Secondly, we have Spell Steal. It's a very sneaky ability that can steal buffs from enemy players, but in rare circumstances can steal raid boss buffs to provide a massive advantage. Another really useful thing in Arena is you can steal hots and just end up like getting double hots on yourself. It's very, very powerful. Next we have Invisibility. This ability takes 5 seconds to fully activate, during which...
Is it like a cat over here? God damn, it looks literally like a cat. I didn't even notice before. I was thinking that it's just an eye.
Your threat is reduced massively, much like a priest's fade, and then after the 5 seconds you become invisible. Just like drinking an invisibility potion, you won't be able to see enemies but you will be able to get past enemies undetected and other players won't be able to see you unless they are also invisible. You also will be able to see very strange and rare NPCs which are invisible that you can't normally see in the open world. Second to last ability, we have Slow, which slows movement speed but also casting and range attacks by 50%, lasting 15 seconds, but can only be affected up to one target.
This is gonna be a nightmare for elemental shamans. It's not gonna be so much of an issue for holy paladins and priests, because they can obviously dispel it of themselves, but for elemental shaman, and it's gonna be kind of tough. Even Mumkin is not gonna be struggling with this spell so much, and the reason for that, it's a slow effect, so obviously what he can be doing is that he can be just changing his form, and then it's gonna be removed.
And lastly, we have the Ritual of Refreshment, a big convenience ability that summons a table that players can click to get mana and health regenerating food. So you won't be able to, we won't have to manually trade with anyone anymore, unless you're a bad mage and forget to stack up on Arcane Powder, because the ability does actually require a reagent. It's also important to mention that Ice Block is no longer a talent. It is a spell that all specs have access to. So let's take a look at the talent changes. First change is Arcade Impact to also affect Arcane Blast, since that ability has been added. Here Arcane Meditation is buffed to 10% per point to a total of 30% rather than 15%. We also have an added kind of niche talent called Improved Blink. For 4 seconds after casting Blink, your chance to be hit by all attacks and spells reduced by 13% to obviously a total of 25. We also have the Prismatic Cloak, reduces all damage taken by 2% to a total of 4%. Arcane Instability increases your spell damage and spell critical strike chance by 1% to a total of 3%. Arcane Potency increases your critical strike chance of any spell cast while clear casting by 30%. Spell Power increases critical strike damage bonus of all spells by 50% to a total of 200% of their original damage. We have Empowered Arcane Missiles. Your Arcane Missiles gains an additional 45% of your bonus spell damage, and your mana cost is also increased by 6%. Then we have Mind Mastery, increases all spell damage done by 5% of your total intellect to a total of 25%. And then lastly we have Slow. For the fire spec, we have the first change, which is Burning Soul. The threat reduction has been nerfed to 10% rather than 30%. Next we have a talent Playing with Fire, increases all spell damage caused by 3% and spell damage taken by 3%. Then we have Blazing Speed, 10% chance when hit by melee or range attack to increase movement speed by 50%.
Okay, talent style.
Talent.
Yes, talent style. Let's go to the juicy part. Arenas.
An extra crit, and then lastly we have Summon Water Elemental. So let's talk a little bit about the PvE and PvP performance of a Mage in the Burning Crusade.
Very good.
Mages are a top dog single tag and AoE DPS in TBC. Not quite as good as a Hunter or a Warlock, although they will do more AoE damage than a Hunter.
It depends. The advantage of the Mage is basically the control. Freeze is kind of cold, Frost Nova, Polymorphs, Silence. It's just too powerful.
More than likely.
But also, to be a good mage is very difficult. For example, let's say that to be a good Holy Paladin it's not that hard, but obviously it's hard to be a good. It's hard to be a very good Paladin. But on the other side, when we are talking about the mage, it's kind of hard to be okay mage, and it's very, very hard to be a pro.
But Hunters and Warlocks are like ridiculously overpowered in TBC, and I'd say that Mages are a definite close third. Most raids are going to bring at least 1 to 2 Mages to a 25-man raid group. So the last time when I was streaming on my Mage, the general opinion of most people was that every Mage spec is viable for raiding. Fire spec is the top dog spec most of the time. Frost is great for AoE tank in dungeons and trash in raids, so still very useful. And Arcane has a moment to be the top dog with tier 5 gear. There's also an Arcane Frost spec that is very powerful when undergeared for raiding, since it gives you 10% extra spell hit rating, which means you don't have to stack as much spell hit rating in order to actually hit the boss, guaranteed. And you also get to take advantage of double Icy Veins cooldown for a total of 40 seconds, which is pretty good. In PvP, I would consider them to be a top tier class, a tier A class, not quite a tier S class like a Warlock or a Resto Druid, because again they're really overpowered in arena. But
yeah, that's true. And Mage, yeah, you just need to be good, but you definitely got the potential to be amongst the best teams. You just need to know what you're doing. And Warlock is just Warlock is too powerful, and Restoration Druid is just too powerful in TBC arenas. It is what it is, but definitely other classes can be competing. We are not saying that.
Still a very strong class with a very high skill cap. They could probably be a tier S class in all honesty, but you will have to, you know, really pull your pants up and get as skilled as humanly possible, probably playing about 8 hours a day for you to get really skilled at playing a mage, because yeah, like I said, it has a very high skill ceiling. So let's take a little look at the tier sets. Unfortunately, Mage don't get a massive amount of love when it comes to tier sets in TBC, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's just my opinion anyway. I don't think they just look that impressive compared to other classes. So first of all, we have tier 4. The 2 set bonus gives you 100.
From the look, I would say 4 out of 10. Gives you 100 chance to avoid interruption caused by damage while casting Fireball or Frostbolt. Then we got tier 5. Also, the look is not the best in my opinion. It's like, it is what it is. So 2 set increase damage and mana cost of Arcane Blast by 20%. Your spell critical strike grants you up to 70 spell damage for 6 seconds. It is what it is. And tier 6, yeah. From the look of it, tier 6 is in my opinion the best looking one. And I think on a Gnome or on Undead Mage is looking actually pretty decent. But I would say on a human it doesn't look that good in my opinion. But yeah, 2 set increase the duration of your evocation. This is actually huge. This is actually really good. Increase damage of your Fireball, Frostbolt and Arcane missiles by 5%. Pretty decent. So just to sum it up, do you want to be playing Mage in TBC? Yes, very strong DPS class. But if you want to be doing if you want to be doing arenas, then you gotta be trying a little bit more. I would definitely suggest to go with like Discipline Priest and a Frost Mage, but you just gotta like learn the tactics and how to handle specific cases. And you have a very interesting playstyle. On the other hand, if you're talking about PvE is kind of simple, and you got a lot of possibilities for kiting, for protection and stuff like that. So Mage very powerful, but I would say that in Classic WoW he's a little bit better. That in Classic WoW Mage is definitely the best class. In TBC I would say that the spot is reserved for the Shaman, Warlock or a Hunter. Fellas, thank you for watching. Please go into the description, click on the original video and leave a like and subscribe to Meta Goblin and leave a like on his video. Also please leave a like on my video, subscribe to my channel. It's helping the algorithm, so my video is gonna get promoting. It helps a lot. Please just subscribe, I really appreciate it, and leave a comment what video am I supposed to check in the next one, and I might put you in the video. Thank you. See ya.